I want to talk to you about cloud computing this morning. And it was introduced as a technology subject. I really don't look at it as a technology subject. I look at it as this is an evolution of about 50 years of computer science that has been added to it that I think makes it very exciting is the user experience and the business model. And what do I mean by the user experience and business model? First off, it's about standardized offerings. Thanks to people like Google and Amazon and others, they've gotten users used to a very standardized offering as opposed to most IT and large enterprises and institutions is highly customized to users. So to make the cloud work, you have to have high level of standardization of services so that you can achieve the automation to drive the cost, but more importantly to me, the rapid provisioning and the self-service for a user that masks the complexity that's behind that self-service interface. So standardized offerings, rapidly provisioned, flexibly priced, pay for use. And people think about that in terms of the public cloud as I'm only paying a subscription or a rate per hour or gigabyte per month that I'm paying an outside provider. But I would tell you as an IT professional, I think it's also important as you think of your organization that if you're going to provide cloud services within your organization, that you have to get into a chargeback model that's based upon how the users are consuming that resource. It's a very attractive model for the user, and we think it's a key component of making the cloud model work. The other thing is it's the infrastructure and service delivery model, which is the 50-year evolution of computer science. It's about virtualization of resources. It's taking those standardized services and automating them through service management, and it's also about scaling and being able to scale elastically. And that's people think about it as going up, but it's also scaling down very quickly as your workload transitions. And then probably to me the most important and exciting part of this as an IT professional is the self-service aspect of IT. If you think about this, cloud computing is the industrialization of IT. It is moving more automation into IT to reduce the amount of systems administration required to run large infrastructures. But in addition to that, it's providing a self-service interface that really makes a user happy. And let me give you my best story. So when I was CIO at IBM, my toughest crowd, which is the crowd you probably all work with every day, were the researchers. Right? The IBM research people are tough customers. They all have, each one has an individual IT budget. Most of them build their own infrastructure, and they do some pretty amazing things in that team. They produce more patents than any other group in the world every year. But a couple of years ago, they were all highly dissatisfied with IT. They couldn't get the resource they wanted, and so we got the team together and got them to agree that they would pool resources and share resources really for the first time on a big scale. And so we built a globally distributed, in 6 countries, cloud. It's called RC2, Research Compute Cloud, that now all the researchers share and use. And the researchers love it because when they want a configuration, they pull up a self-service interface. They check the boxes of what they want. They push a button. It goes to a systems administration system that checks to see if it's available, and then it releases to them. So they get their configuration in minutes. If they made a mistake in their configuration or they need more resource, they're able to very quickly turn off and turn on. When they've created a test system, they can store the image and restore it later. No physical builds. And so the research group in IBM is the happiest they've ever been. The tough part was getting them all to come together in a governance model and agreeing to get that done, which I know on many campuses around the country and around the world is probably the most difficult thing to do if you're going to work in the cloud. The second thing that I would tell you is we spent a lot of time when we first got into this with our research organization on what we call cloud scale economics and really taking a look at the effective scale and what it would cost to deliver these things. The reason we think cloud is real is because the economics are compelling. So we've gone through utility computing, we've gone through grid, we've gone through lots of things that are interesting computer science, but they've never really taken off. When you combine standardization, virtualization, automation, self-service, and scaling, when you put those things together, we call it cloud economics, it really drives a much lower price point for delivering compute. And what this says basically is at the bottom is service provider cloud. So that's like the scale of cost at which an Amazon or a Google, can deliver services, which is a very low level cost. Up at the top is your traditional IT infrastructure, using best practices as you scale, the type of cost you can achieve. The middle section is if you're a single enterprise based upon the number of servers that you're managing in your environment, how you can achieve costs. And what you see there is there's a couple of knees in the curve. And we feel they're pretty significant. And the first one that's up there, you're starting to get close to service provider costs. You'll never get all the way there because the clouds they operate are very specialized clouds, typically driving a single type of workload where the typical workload you drive in your organization has multiple different characteristics. And so therefore, it's much more difficult for you to achieve, their scale and economy. But because of that knee in the curve, we've made two things. Number one, we started talking about private clouds because we think most large organizations, if you've got 2,000 or more servers that you could put into a cloud environment, you're going to build a private cloud because you can get your economics pretty close to what you could buy for, and you can have that behind your firewall, and you won't incur some of the communications costs associated with running a public cloud. But if you're to the left of that curve, small businesses, small institutions, the economics are so compelling, you're probably going to buy from a public cloud. Your applications as you go into the future. And as applications become available, we see a rapid consumption of those services by smaller businesses and smaller institutions. So that's provided you to think about it. Depending upon the size of your organization and how you can go, if you're big enough, you can start thinking about delivering on a private cloud. But if you're not, it's really time to start studying some of the publicly available applications.